Welcome to Deep Awakening, the space where timeless wisdom meets modern soul-searching. Here, we dive beneath the surface of everyday life to uncover the truths Carl Jung and other great minds left for us, the shadows we fear, the loneliness we carry, and the strength we long to awaken. Have you ever wondered why a woman can stand in a crowded room surrounded by voices, laughter, and affection, and yet feel the sharpest isolation pressing against her chest like a blade? The secret is this: loneliness is not the absence of bodies, but the absence of resonance. It is the silence between souls, the chasm that forms when the things most vital to you remain unspoken, misunderstood, or dismissed. Carl Jung knew this truth when he said that loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that matter most. The crowd cannot save you if they cannot see you, and many women live as phantoms even in their own families, workplaces, and marriages. Applauded for their usefulness, admired for their beauty, tolerated for their obedience, but never truly met at the level of the soul. This is the deepest hunger: to be mirrored, to have the invisible weight of your thoughts and fears reflected back without distortion. Without that, you may smile, you may talk, you may perform, but inside, you vanish. Psychology tells us that the unconscious seeks communion. Jung called it individuation, the slow unveiling of the authentic self buried under masks of survival. Yet most women are trained from childhood to please, to adapt, to mold themselves into what the environment demands. This pleases society, but it strangles the soul. What happens when you silence yourself for too long? The voice doesn't disappear. It retreats into shadow. It whispers in your dreams, in your sudden bursts of anger, in your secret tears at night. It becomes the ghost that follows you even into rooms full of friends. And you, have you noticed how you withhold your truths? You laugh at jokes that cut you. You nod at opinions you despise. You swallow pain because you fear being too much. Yet in doing so, you betray yourself. That betrayal, not solitude, is the seed of loneliness. Loneliness is not the emptiness around you. It is the emptiness within, created by your refusal to bring forth what is real. Consider the archetype of the woman who wears the mask of perfection. She has admirers. She is envied. She is told she is lucky. But she walks home each night with her secrets locked away like dangerous contraband. Her partner doesn't know her inner storms. Her friends only see the polished surface. Her parents still speak to the child they once imagined, not the woman she has become. And so, in a life overflowing with company, she remains starved. This is the tragedy of many women: to be surrounded yet unseen, to be busy yet unacknowledged, to be loved yet unknown. The Stoics warned of this when they spoke of living in accordance with nature. Seneca said, "We are always complaining that our days are few, and acting as though there would be no end of them." Replace days with truths, and the lesson sharpens. You complain of loneliness, yet you waste the chance to speak what burns inside you. You long for connection, but you silence the very words that would forge it. What are you afraid of? Rejection, judgment, loss? Understand this: you are already suffering all three when you suppress your authenticity. Jung's shadow work tells us that the unlived life, the unspoken word, the buried desire, they do not disappear. They twist into projections. You start to resent others who are free. You envy those who speak boldly. You criticize what you secretly long to do. And all the while, your relationships fracture, because people cannot love the mask you wear. They can only love the woman you reveal. But if she never steps forward, then love, however abundant, never lands on you. It lands on your disguise. That is why the loneliness persists. Imagine now the transformation of the woman who dares to voice what matters. She speaks her fears, and those who mock her reveal themselves unworthy. She shares her desires, and those who dismiss them remove themselves from her circle. Yes, she loses people, but in losing them, she gains herself. And in gaining herself, she discovers the rare companions who can hold her truth without fear. It is not quantity that dissolves loneliness, but depth. One soul who sees you is worth 1,000 who only glance. Do you see how your silence imprisons you? The more you hide, the less you exist. The more you speak, the more you summon into being the woman you were meant to become. Loneliness is not a punishment, but a signal, an alarm from your unconscious telling you it is time to live in truth. Time to risk exposure. Time to abandon the comfort of masks. Time to step into the terrifying, liberating light of being known. The tragedy of many women is not that they are unloved, but that they are loved for the wrong reasons. They are admired for their beauty, depended upon for their caretaking, respected for their resilience. Yet beneath the surface, their truest self remains untouched. To be celebrated for a mask is to remain unknown, and that unknown self cries out in the silence of the night, creating the sensation we call loneliness. For what good is the affection of others if it never reaches the deepest chambers of your soul? Carl Jung spoke of the anima and animus, the inner feminine within men and the inner masculine within women. When this inner polarity is ignored, when a woman is forced to perform only the nurturing archetype, only the obedient daughter, only the silent wife, her animus, the part of her that longs to assert, to define, to proclaim, remains locked away. She feels half-formed, and no matter how many people surround her, she cannot escape the sense of incompletion. This is why Jung insisted that individuation is not optional. It is the very process of healing the fracture between who you are and who you present. Without it, loneliness is inevitable, for half of you is forever exiled. Do you recognize this exile? Have you noticed how you smile while your thoughts scream in silence? How you agree outwardly while your inner world rages against compromise? That dissonance is the root of your isolation. You could be seated at the family dinner, nodding politely, and still feel like a stranger. You could be making love to a man who adores your body and still feel unseen. It is not his eyes that fail you, it is your refusal to open your mouth and let your soul speak. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus declared, "How long will you wait before you demand the best of yourself?" For women, the question cuts even deeper. How long will you remain silent before you demand the right to be heard? How long will you endure superficial bonds before you demand intimacy of spirit? How long will you live in exile from yourself, hoping that someone will guess what you never dared to say? The answer is simple: you will wait forever unless you choose otherwise. The shadow longs to be voiced. Jung said, "What you resist persists. Every truth you bury grows teeth in the dark. You resist anger and it erupts in tears at the wrong moment. You resist desire and it appears in dreams of forbidden passion. You resist fear and it disguises itself as perfectionism, as control, as detachment. All these are masks, and yet they fail to protect you. They only deepen your solitude because no one can meet the woman hidden beneath so many layers. Imagine the liberation of tearing the mask away. Imagine the risk of speaking aloud the very thing you thought would end you. Yes, some will turn away. Yes, some will mock, but others, few, rare, luminous, will lean in closer. They will hear not just your words, but your essence. These are the connections worth waiting for. These are the antidotes to loneliness. For in that moment, you are no longer performing. You are being, and being seen in your truth even once is worth more than a lifetime of applause for your disguise. Archetypally, this is the shift from the victim to the creator. The victim believes loneliness is something done to her, that others are cruel, neglectful, unworthy. The creator realizes that loneliness is the result of her own silence, her refusal to build bridges with truth. she begins to see that every conversation is an opportunity for revelation, not just exchange. She stops waiting to be asked and begins offering herself. In doing so, she reclaims the animus, that inner masculine force that allows her to act, to voice, to shape her destiny. And yet, the path is not easy. To speak the truth is to walk into fire, but fire is also what refines. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." The very fear of rejection becomes the doorway to authenticity. The very terror of exposure becomes the proof of liberation. What you dread most, being misunderstood, is also the crucible that burns away those who never truly cared, leaving behind the ones who do. Loneliness ends not when everyone stays, but when only the right ones remain. So ask yourself, are you willing to endure temporary loss for eternal gain? Are you willing to risk silence broken for communion restored? If so, the landscape of your life begins to change. The conversations deepen. The nights grow less empty. The soul, long buried, begins to breathe. And as you breathe, the world shifts, for you no longer seek to belong. You begin to create belonging by the sheer force of your truth. Loneliness is a crucible, and in that crucible, a woman either collapses or transforms. It is not the presence of others that dissolves the ache, but the courage to bridge the distance between her soul and the world. Jung knew this distance was born of repression, the lifelong training of women to be agreeable, silent, pleasing. A woman may learn early that her value is measured by her compliance, that her anger is unattractive, that her longing is selfish, that her truth is dangerous. And so, she hides. She learns the art of invisibility while her body stands in plain sight. Over time, that invisibility rots into isolation, and she wonders why the world feels so far away. But the truth is brutal and liberating. The world cannot meet you if you never step forward. The silence you keep is the prison you maintain. The loneliness you feel is the sentence you enforce. You wait for permission, yet none will ever come. Because permission is not granted, it is seized. Jung spoke of projection, the way we cast the unlived parts of ourselves onto others. When a woman refuses to speak her own needs, she demands unconsciously that others anticipate them. She grows resentful when they fail, enraged when they misinterpret her silence. But how could they not fail? They are not clairvoyants. They are mirrors reflecting only what she reveals. The loneliness that results is not evidence of her unworthiness. It is evidence of her concealment. The archetype of the Shadow Queen captures this paradox. She sits in silence, longing to be seen, but her crown is hidden in the dark. She expects her subjects to recognize her without declaration, her lover to adore her without confession, her friends to understand her without articulation. When they do not, she curses them for blindness, never realizing that she has veiled her own radiance. Loneliness is her kingdom, built stone by stone from every truth she refused to unveil. And yet, within that kingdom lies the seed of rebirth. For the Shadow Queen need only rise and speak to transform into the sovereign. She need only risk rejection to find communion. She need only claim her truth to banish the emptiness. Consider how often women apologize for their feelings. "I'm sorry, I don't want to be a burden. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. I'm sorry, I shouldn't feel this way." These apologies are daggers, stabbing their own voices before they are born. But to apologize for your truth is to affirm your unworthiness. And what follows is not harmony, but despair, for you have silenced yourself before the world even had the chance to listen. No wonder you are lonely. You have gagged your own soul. The Stoics taught detachment from the opinions of others. Epictetus said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Imagine applying this to your truth, to speak what matters and accept that some will misunderstand. Yes, they may call you dramatic, selfish, unreasonable, but their labels do not define you. Their rejection does not diminish you. Their departure does not wound you. The only true wound is your silence. Loneliness, then, is not a curse, but a compass. It points to the places where your truth is trapped. It reveals the exact chambers of your soul that remain unspoken. When you feel that familiar ache, do not numb it, do not distract from it, do not drown it in noise. Instead, listen. Ask, what is it that I have not yet said? What part of me still hides in exile? For loneliness is the herald of authenticity, the whisper that says, bring me into the light. Picture the woman who finally answers that call. She risks the conversation that quivers on her lips. She admits to her partner, I am not happy. She tells her parents, that dream is not mine. She tells herself in the mirror, I am worthy of more. And in that moment, the loneliness begins to fracture, not because everyone applauds her, but because for the first time she hears her own voice echo back. The silence within is broken. The prison begins to crumble. This is the essence of Jung's individuation, to unify the fractured pieces of self, to integrate shadow and light, to live without disguise. Loneliness cannot survive in such wholeness, for when you are whole, you no longer crave recognition as desperately. You carry it within, and those who resonate with your truth are drawn to you not out of pity but out of alignment. Do you see now, loneliness is not an indictment of your value. It is an invitation to authenticity. It is your soul's rebellion against exile. It is the most faithful companion you have ever had, for it refuses to let you forget who you are. Loneliness is not merely an ache, it is a mirror. It reflects back every compromise you have made against your own soul. Women are often taught that silence is virtue, that compliance is strength, that invisibility is safety. But these are lies. Each time you bite your tongue, each time you bury your desire, each time you nod when your spirit wants to roar, you carve another chamber in the prison of isolation. The walls grow higher, the air grows thinner, until finally you mistake suffocation for normalcy. This is why Jung insisted that wholeness cannot be achieved without confronting shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is the unlived life, the words unsaid, the passions denied. When you ignore that shadow, you do not banish it, you simply project it. You resent those who speak freely because they remind you of your own silence. You envy those who love boldly because they reveal your hidden longing. You criticize those who risk rejection because they expose your own fear. In truth, you are haunted not by them but by yourself. Loneliness feeds on this haunting, on the constant gap between the woman you pretend to be and the woman you are. But what if the loneliness is not punishment? What if it is initiation? The ancients understood solitude as sacred. In the stillness, prophets heard divine voices, mystics touched the eternal, and seekers confronted their deepest truth. Your loneliness, too, is such a threshold. It is not asking you to fill it with noise, but to step into it fully, to face the silence and discover who you have refused to be. That is why avoidance never works. You can drown in crowds, you can cling to relationships, you can scroll endlessly. But the loneliness waits, faithful, patient, reminding you you cannot escape yourself. The Stoics would urge you to embrace this discipline. Seneca wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. You keep expecting others to one day understand you, to guess your soul, to save you from isolation. But today you silence yourself again. The obstacle is not their blindness, it is your postponement of authenticity. You wait, and in waiting you waste your life." Think of the archetype of the lover not in the narrow sense of romance, but in the Jungian sense of the soul's hunger for connection. The lover longs to merge, to dissolve the barriers between self and other. But when the lover is wounded, when she fears vulnerability, she withholds. She gives her body but not her soul, her words but not her heart. The embrace becomes hollow, the friendship becomes shallow, the marriage becomes a performance. The lover's wound festers and she feels abandoned. Yet she has abandoned herself first. Her loneliness is self-inflicted. To heal, she must dare to love differently, not by giving herself away, but by revealing herself whole. She must risk that terrifying moment of exposure. This is what matters to me. This is what I fear. This is what I desire. Yes, some will retreat, but others will step forward with awe, for they will have met not the mask, but the woman. And that is where loneliness dies, not in the multitude, but in the rare communion of souls. The journey is brutal, for every woman must confront the shadow mother within. The voice that says, stay small, stay silent, stay pleasing. This voice echoes from culture, from family, from centuries of suppression. But it is only an echo, not a law. The moment you answer it with your own voice, you fracture its power. You realize the prison door was never locked. You realize the loneliness was the key, urging you to break free. So ask yourself, what would it take to speak without apology? What would it take to risk being misunderstood and still remain true? What would it take to let your loneliness not weaken you, but awaken you? For in that awakening, the shadow becomes ally, the silence becomes strength, and the woman who once begged for recognition becomes the woman who commands it. And then you discover the most astonishing truth. The end of loneliness does not come when others finally see you. It comes when you finally refuse to hide. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses. If this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember to subscribe to Deep Awakening for more psychological insights, soulful empowerment, and the kind of wisdom that transforms silence into strength.